I've made pretty much all of these mistakes. Yep, all of them. Hi, my name is Sarah, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some common mistakes that we all make when trying to pick out what to sew. Now, this video is not about actual sewing technique mistakes. That's a whole different kind of video. I'm talking about when you're planning out your handmade wardrobe and you're trying to figure out what you want to make. We've all made those mistakes where you sew up a garment, you spend all that time and energy and fabric on making something, and then you put it on your body and you're disappointed and it just isn't what you thought you were getting in your head. I'm here to help you identify why that might happen and also to give you some tips on what to do instead so that every piece of clothing that you add to your wardrobe is something that will be loved and well worn throughout the years. So the first mistake that you might be making is trying to copy someone else's style. Now, we have all been there scrolling through Instagram and you stop on a garment that just looks absolutely beautiful on a sewist and you think to yourself, I want to buy that pattern and make that for myself and I'm going to look fantastic too. Only when you make the garment for yourself, it doesn't quite look the same way on you. It doesn't suit you the way that it suited the person on Instagram. And that's because you're trying to emulate someone else's style instead of making it your own. Now, this isn't just limited to sewing patterns or sewing garments that you see on social media. This can also actually translate into just other people's style that you admire, whether that's in your real life or on social media. To give you an example, there's a very popular Instagrammer and YouTuber named Emma Hill, and I really admire her style. I think that it's very distinct. She has a really interesting point of view, and all of her clothing is really consistent with that style, and it looks fantastic on her. But whenever I have tried to copy one of her outfits for myself, it just doesn't look the same on me. And maybe that seems like it should be obvious because I don't look anything like her, so I'm not going to look the same in her outfits as she does. But I know that I've been guilty in the past of not recognizing how a certain style is actually going to look on me and my body, instead of just thinking that I'm going to look just like the model or just like the influencer who's wearing that. So instead of just copy and pasting someone else's style, I encourage you to, if you want to try something new, maybe go to a store and see if you can find something similar and try it on just to see how it looks on you before you invest the time and money into making it for yourself. Or at least just think very carefully about, does this garment work in my own wardrobe? How would I actually wear it? Can I come up with a few different outfits that I would pair with it that would work for me? Just put a little bit more thought into it and make sure that the garment that you are getting ready to make is going to work for you and not just look great on someone else. The second mistake that people make is sewing garments for the life that you wish you had. Now, this can actually fall into a few different categories, whether that's climate or lifestyle, whether you have a dressy or a casual lifestyle, or even fabrics that require special care. For me, I have a tendency to want to sew a lot of dresses in the spring and summertime because I just love them, but in reality, I don't wear dresses all that much, and so it's not really a great investment for me to put a lot of time and effort into sewing dresses when I might only wear them 1 or 2 times a season. A good example of this is last year I made the Vicky Sews Milana dress, and I made it for my birthday, and it was for a special occasion, and so I don't regret making it. But if I'm going to be honest with myself, there's really not a lot of occasions where I could see myself wearing this dress again because it does have an open back. It's not going to be something that I wear to work, and it feels a little bit fancy to me, and so if I had another occasion, I would probably wear a different dress to that occasion. Now, like I said, I don't regret making that dress even if I only end up wearing it just that one time, but it's definitely not something that I want to make a habit of. I want to try to put my energies into creating clothing that I'm going to be wearing again and again for years and years. So just think a little bit about the life that you actually lead, and before you make that 3-piece suit when you were a stay-at-home mom, think about what are the occasions when I'm actually going to wear this outfit, how much wear am I actually going to get out of it before you take the plunge and put the time and effort into sewing something. The third mistake that you might be making when planning your handmade wardrobe is neglecting personal comfort. Now, this could be related to the fabric itself. Maybe you've chosen a fabric that's a little bit itchy or just uncomfortable. Or maybe it has to do with the design details of the garment. Something like a floor skimming maxi skirt that you have to wear with heels and you might trip over it all the time. A couple of years ago, I made the Fiber Mood honey blouse, which I do like the style of, but it has these tie sleeves on it, and I just find that the ties get in the way all the time, and it's really annoying and frustrating, especially when I go to wash my hands. I just personally do not enjoy having little floofy bits or wide sleeves or anything that's gonna get in my soup. I find it incredibly irritating. So when you're looking at patterns and planning out your wardrobe, make sure that you're not neglecting those little things that can really make a big difference when it comes to your personal comfort. The fourth mistake that you might be making is sewing things last minute when it's not necessary. Now, I am very proud to say that I haven't really done this in a long time, but when I was younger, it was something that I did all the time, and I really regret it. When I was in my 20s, I might go to Joann Fabrics on Saturday and try to sew up a top really quickly so that I could go out in the evening at night with my friends. And inevitably, that garment that I made was just extremely poorly made because I rushed it so much, to the point where it might even fall apart after a couple of wears. So it's always good to remember that sewing your own clothes is not a race, and that whatever it is that you wanted to make for that thing, there's always some alternative. You can wear something else. And so I've always found that it is better to take your time and do a good job, especially when you want clothes that are going to last you for years and years, and don't rush through the process when it's just not necessary. Another arena where this happens is for challenges. So I think sometimes we all get caught up in Instagram challenges or on YouTube challenges and you want to participate, but maybe you don't have a lot of time to sew this month, and so you're trying to rush through the process so you can get it into the challenge. Try to remember that this is a temporary thing. If you don't get to enter for the challenge, it's not the end of the world. If you wanted to sew that garment, then it's worth taking the time to just slow down and do a good job, because hopefully you're going to be pulling this garment out of your closet for years and years to come. So whether you finish it in time for the end of the month to enter it into a challenge, or you finish it the next week, in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't matter. You definitely don't want to rush through the process and then very shortly have to repair something or even get rid of it because you just didn't do a good job with the construction because you were rushing. And really, let's face it, for no good reason. Mistake number 5 is sewing too many duplicates. Now, I told you in the beginning that I've made all of these mistakes, but this one might be one of my worst offenders. I have a lot of white tops. I'm inserting some footage of all the white tops that I have in my spring and summer wardrobe, but actually I have even more because I've packed away my winter wardrobe, and so there's even more in there that I didn't get out for this video. And while I do wear white quite a lot, and so I think it's okay to have a little bit of variety, do I actually need this many white tops? Probably not. I need to do a better job of reminding myself that every piece of clothing in my wardrobe should have a purpose. And if I have, let's say, a white button-up shirt, do I really need a slightly different white button-up shirt? Because really what I'm doing is I'm sort of splitting the number of wears that I would wear each garment, and I really would have just been better off with sticking with one. So instead of just sewing the same type of garment over and over again, ask yourself if you really need it. Picture yourself in situations where you might want to wear that new garment, and then think about the garment that's similar that you already own. And if you're putting all of the same outfits together and you're just changing out the top or whatever it is, maybe you don't actually need that second one. And perhaps you should just hold off on duplicating another version until your first one actually needs to be replaced. Moving on to mistake number 6. Wasting time on wearable muslins. Now, I am absolutely 100% in favor of making fit muslins. I think that it is a good idea, and you're never going to regret putting in the time to make up a quick fit muslin just to make sure that the garment is going to fit you before you cut into your expensive fabric. What I'm talking about that you should avoid is making a wearable muslin that isn't really wearable. Oftentimes when we make something that we're calling a wearable muslin, we're using fabric that's either left over, or maybe it was less expensive, or maybe you bought it at one time but now you don't really like it anymore, but it's in your stash. And if you actually take the time to go through the entire process and make up the whole garment, only to find that you have something that you don't really like because you don't really like the fabric, and in the end perhaps it actually really doesn't fit you that well because it was a muslin that you were trying to alter to get the fit right, you're going to end up with something that you don't want to wear. And I've done this several times. I've actually only recently made myself stop doing it. And I think that it's fine if you want to go through the whole process just to make sure that you get the practice. I will say for myself that I don't really feel it necessary to do that unless it's just a new technique that I've never ever done before. But if that's you, that's perfectly fine. But just be aware that most of the time it's not really necessary to make up an entire garment if you don't have plans to wear it. It's okay to just make an actual fit muslin out of that cheaper fabric that you don't really like anymore. And then when you're done with it, just recycle it or use it for stuffing or whatever you do with your leftover fabrics. But putting in all that time and energy and effort into actually sewing up a garment that you're not going to wear, that might just sit in your closet and take up space, that's a mistake. The next mistake that you might be making is forgetting about the basics. Now I know that we all love really beautiful, fun fabrics and interesting, intricate patterns to sew, but sometimes we might be neglecting the basic pieces that tie a wardrobe together. Because let's face it, they're often not that fun to sew. Now I do want to say that it is absolutely perfectly fine if you just don't like sewing basics to just purchase them. The handmade police are not going to come after you and tell you that you didn't make your t-shirt and so you're a bad person. So if that's what you want to do, it's perfectly fine. However, if you are like me and you want to one day have a 100% me-made wardrobe, then you will need to sew basics every once in a while. So my suggestion is to go through your closet and make a list of those completer pieces that you really need to tie your wardrobe together, and then just have a running list and maybe do one of those pieces after making a certain number of fun pieces. So for example, maybe I would sew a dress and a fun top and then go ahead and make that white t-shirt. And then, make another couple of fun things and then make another basic. That way, slowly over time, you will be adding those garments to your closet that make things easier to mix and match, but you still get to make fun things too. And whether you're sewing or purchasing those basics, I do encourage you to use materials that are as high quality as you can afford, because it is something that you will wear again and again for years and you want them to last. It's also another time that you really don't want to rush. You want to take your time and do a really good job with construction so that it lasts in your closet for as long as possible. The next mistake is getting caught up in trends. Now the fashion cycle is so incredibly rapid right now. There's new trends basically every week, and it's easy to get caught up in them and think I need to sew things that are going to be trendy. But because we make our own clothes, there's just no way that we could possibly keep up with the cycle of fashion trends. So instead, just think about the trends that really suit you, that really speak to you and that you love, and just make those things. Think to yourself, am I going to want to wear this a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, rather than that short-term thinking? And if you love wearing something that is not technically trendy right now, like skinny jeans, then go ahead and wear them because you love them and they suit you, and it doesn't really matter if they're currently on trend, because in the blink of an eye, they'll be back again or they'll be out. And so it doesn't really matter. You should really just wear what you love. Make those trendy pieces if they suit your personal style and avoid them if they don't. Now, if you would like some more tips for building a handmade wardrobe, watch this video next.